Chapter 9. After patching things up with Lee, I tried calling Noah again when I got home from dinner with the Flynns. We'd texted a little during the day, the usual "Hey, how are you? What are you up to today? Miss you." But I really wanted to talk to him. Hell, I texted Levi more than I texted Noah these days. It sucked that Noah had to go to college on the other side of the country. Why did Harvard have to be so damn far away? I hated not being able to walk to his house to be with him. I hated not being able to take a nap wrapped up in his arms next to him on the couch. I hated not being able to argue with him about what to watch on TV, even though we'd end up not paying that much attention to it anyway. I hated that he wasn't here to make me laugh and kiss my nose and look at me like I was the only thing that mattered in that moment. I hated that I missed him so bad, and I couldn't do anything about it. Sure, I'd had plenty of things to take my mind off how badly I missed Noah. But times like this, it felt like there was a chunk of me missing. Specifically, a Noah-sized and shaped chunk. It was like an ache in my chest, or something heavy pressing down on my lungs, and a kind of sadness that not even cute pictures of kittens or funny memes could elevate. Elevate was one of the sad words on my list to learn this week. The longer the phone rang, the closer I got to the edge of my bed, and I started biting my thumbnail. Why wasn't he answering? He hardly ever answered me lately when I called. Was he studying? He was probably studying and had his cell on silent, or maybe even turned off so he wasn't disturbed. Was he out with friends? Why wasn't he picking up? Was he ignoring me? Finally, Noah answered. The video of his face filled the screen. His beaming smile, his crooked nose, the dimple in his cheek, his bright blue eyes. His hair was short and... was that a beard? Was he actually growing a beard? Damn, if it didn't suit him. He looked so much older. There were trees in the background, a low sun, blue skies. He was sitting somewhere with his headphones in, and the breeze stirred his hair. "Hey, you." And he sounded so happy to talk to me that I stopped biting my nail, flopped onto my stomach on my bed, propped up on my elbows, and smiled back at him. "Hey, how are you?" "I'm good." "Yeah, everything's good. What about you? You look stressed. Did you get wasted last night and grounded?" He chuckled, giving me a look of mock disappointment. "No, I'm good. The party was okay. I've just got back from dinner with Lee and your parents." Noah knew Lee had been blowing me off for Rachel a lot lately, and we'd argued for like 20 minutes a couple of weeks ago, until he swore not to talk to Lee about it on my behalf. I got the feeling telling him everything about the party last night would only cause a fight between them. "Owl, come on. What's up?" I sighed, biting the inside of my cheek. I shouldn't have video called him. Lee was kind of a jerk last night, at the party, to everyone, not just me. That's why I went over to your place, actually, to talk to him. And? We are good. He's gonna try not to ditch me for Rachel so much. And then, before I could stop myself, I frowned and blurted, "Did you know he wants to apply to Brown?" "What? Like Dad did?" "Like with Rachel," I clarified. I watched it dawn on Noah. His eyes drifted away from the screen, and I watched his eyebrows draw together and his lips press into a line. I waited for him to start on some kind of rant about how Lee was out of order, how that was too far, and what about me and Berkeley. But when he finally opened his mouth, what he said was, You know, there's plenty of good schools in Boston. It knocked the breath out of my lungs for a second, and we stared through the phone at each other. I drew a breath from my nose. It sounded loud, sharp, uneven. Lee had made a throwaway comment about it yesterday, but hearing Noah suggest it, he really wanted me there with him? I must have been quiet for too long because Noah shuffled, uncomfortable, his cheeks faintly pink. His eyes looked anywhere but at his phone, and he ran a hand back and forth through his hair. Maybe I can look, I said, or something. So Lee's looking at Brown, he said. That must have been weird for you. Is that why he's been such an ass to you lately? I tried hard not to look as relieved as I felt that he'd changed the subject away from going to college in Boston with him. I was flattered he wanted me to be nearer to him, but I couldn't choose a school just because my boyfriend was there, could I? And what about Lee? And there was my dad and Brad to think about. Berkeley was close. That was always a factor. I couldn't just leave them. It just didn't feel like the kind of conversation to have on a whim over the phone. Actually, I said, and explained that Lee's attitude had less to do with Rachel, like I'd thought, and more about him feeling he had to live up to Noah's reputation. I watched Noah's expression cloud over as I told him about it, torn between guilt and annoyance. Maybe I should talk to him, tell him to cool it or something. I don't know. Seriously, don't. He was pretty upset about it. He'll probably just feel worse if you try and talk to him. Yeah, I guess you are right. Damn straight I'm right. I'm always right. Sure, Shelley. Always right. He flashed me his trademark smirk, turning my insides to goo, and making me miss him. So damn much. I wanted to reach through the screen to grab his face and kiss him. I can't believe you were growing a beard, I told him. He tilted his head back, rubbing a hand over his jaw, and giving me a better view of it. You don't like it? It's hot. Right again, Shelley, he winked, making me laugh. Honestly, I broke my razor and haven't gotten a new one yet. Class is keeping you busy. Something like that, he said, expression stiffening. I felt my stomach knot. What had I said? He'd stopped talking to me so much about his classes and stuff. Honestly, I was kind of worried about him. He always seemed to change the topic when I asked about how he was doing in his classes, or asked him about that essay he'd been working on lately. Sure, maybe he just didn't have much to say, or thought I'd find it boring, or wouldn't really get it. But I could tell he was holding back. But I asked, so, how are you finding college? Are you handling everything? He gave a blaze half smile, shrugging one shoulder. Sure I am. I'm not top of the class or anything, but I'm coping. You know? My voice was quiet when I responded. No, not really. You don't talk to me much about college. Apparently it was my day for brutal honesty with the Flynn brothers. Sure I do. Not really. You tell me about people and stuff that's going on socially, or about football, but you don't ever talk to me about your classes. I'm doing fine, Al. There was an edge to his voice. A muscle jumped in his jaw, which only solidified my impression that something was up. It's okay if you are finding it hard. You know, I was reading some articles on this lifestyle blog by a college sophomore about how a lot of students struggle to settle in at college. You know, with the workload and stuff. and ow! Noah didn't exactly shout my name, but he raised his voice. He didn't seem mad, just tired. He lowered the phone to his lap, and I saw him rub a hand over his face. Would you please stop hounding me about this? I'm fine, all right. Maybe I should just let it go. He'd talk to me when he was ready, right? How long was that going to take, though? I could have pushed him on it, but I wanted to be able to trust him. I wanted him to be able to trust me. I didn't want to be an egg, and I hated having actual arguments with him now, when we couldn't kiss and make up. He obviously didn't want to talk about this, and I knew the easiest thing to do right now was drop it. So I did. All right. So, he said, smile stiff, and I could hear the effort he made to sound casual. You got any plans for later? Not really. Have another go at my college essay. Maybe watch a movie. Lee was going to stay in and do some reading for English class. He needs to keep his grades up for football, so I figured I'd leave him to it. Fair enough. What about you? There's a party at one of the frat houses. Steve managed to get us an invite. His girlfriend knows one of the guys there or something. Oh, cool. There was a lapse, one I didn't know how to fill. Over the summer, we'd fall into silence sometimes, but it never mattered. We didn't need to fill the quiet, because it was comfortable. I told myself that it was only awkward right now because we were on the phone, and that was different from being quiet when we were together in person. I considered bringing up the Sadie Hawkins dance, asking him if he'd come home for the weekend to go with me, but I had a feeling he'd say no, and I didn't want to hear that right now, especially after we'd just avoided an argument. And when the silence just got worse and more uncomfortable, so much so that Noah cleared his throat but didn't bother to say anything, I said, I'd better let you go, then, to get ready or whatever. He was visibly relieved for the out. I tried not to appear so obviously disappointed. Yeah, I promised Steve I'd get over my way, and smiling, like they might on any other day, but staring at me and muttering to their friends. I looked down at myself. Had I dropped peanut butter down the front of my uniform? Had one of my buttons popped off? Was my fly open? Was there toilet paper stuck to my shoe? Nope. Is there something on my face? Lee gave me a once-over. No, you were good. People are staring, aren't they? Maybe it's me. I mean, now Noah's gone. Maybe they realize I'm not a hot piece of ass myself. Maybe I'm a hot piece of ass myself. He tossed his head to get the hair out of his eyes. He'd been growing it out. Now I realized, probably to look more like Noah. Noah does take after me in his good looks, after all. Ha ha, I rolled my eyes. I'd have laughed, except my heart was pounding, and my palms were starting to sweat. I hated this feeling, something between being the center of attention and missing out on something big. Whichever one it was, I hated it. Seriously, please tell me I'm imagining things. No, I think they are staring. Yeah, see? That guy pointed. Why? What did I do? I racked my brain, trying to think if I'd done anything at the party on Friday night that people would be talking about. Sure, I'd been crying. But so what? A sobbing, tipsy girl wasn't unusual for a high school party. And I had a clear memory of the whole night and I knew I hadn't done anything really stupid. We merged into the throng, not bothering to try and find the others. There was no point in trying to catch up with them now. It wasn't long until homeroom. We'd just see them later. Lee started talking about this book passage he was writing an essay on for English class, and how brilliant one of the metaphors in it was. But I wasn't really listening. I was too busy concentrating on what everybody else was saying. I feel so sorry for her. Did you see her at John Fletcher's? She left with that new guy, Levi Monroe. I bet they went home together. Slut. You saw her leave with that Levi guy, right? I heard they broke up. She doesn't even look upset. If that were me, I'd be devastated. I can't believe he'd do that to her. He's such a dick. I mean, she's such a sweetie. How could he? I heard she hooked up with Levi Monroe. I know, right? He could totally do better. Do you think they broke up? It was only when Lee pushed me in front of him into homeroom that I realized he had his hand on my back and had been guiding me here the whole time, and I totally zoned out. Now I froze, and he pushed me again, gently. I stumbled, feeling like Bambi on ice. When we took our usual seats, Rachel leaned forward immediately. What the hell, right? Huh? All these rumors going around. They are crazy. What rumors? My brain felt fuzzy. Maybe they weren't even rumors about me. Maybe someone else had pulled some crazy shit over the weekend. Maybe someone else had gone home with Levi when he'd gone back to the party. I blinked a few times, but it didn't clear my head. Everyone's talking about it, Lisa pitched in, and even though she gave me a pitiful, sympathetic look, her tone was laced with excitement that accompanied any kind of gossip. How you left the party early, with Levi. She glanced at his empty seat. But we know you didn't actually, go home with Levi, Rachel added, cutting Lisa a glance that clearly said, "Shut up." Then I caught on, gaping at them, and Lee said that I was thinking before I could recover from my speechlessness. Wait, people think Elle hooked up with Levi? The girls exchanged a look. Lisa said, "Yeah, everyone's talking about it." That's ridiculous, Lee and I chorused. We exchanged a look. Lee pulling his best WTF face. I carried on. Why would they think that? Just because I left early and he took me home? Like that never happens to anyone else. The girls looked at each other again, more apprehensively now. My stomach was already tied up in knots, and now those knots pulled tight, and I squirmed in my seat. My nails dug into my palms. What? Why aren't you telling me? People are also saying, Rachel said slowly, looking down at her fingertip, tracing a pen mark on her desk, that you and Noah broke up. That threw me even more than the rumors that I'd slept with Levi. Wait, what? Where did that come from? Well, did you? Lisa asked, obviously unable to help herself. My eyes narrowed. No, we are still together. If a little rocky. Why? What are people saying? Rachel suddenly hauled her huge Mary Poppins purse up onto her desk, pawing through books and files and sheets of paper for her cell phone. It's less what people are saying. She tapped on her phone a few times before holding it out, and more what they are seeing. Lee got up and moved to Levi's empty chair, then leaned over so his head was next to mine. He sucked in a sharp breath. I was pretty sure I'd forgotten how to breathe. Blown up on Rachel's cell phone screen in crisp, high definition was a photo uploaded to Facebook from someone called Amanda Johnson. Noah was tagged in it. The caption read, "Such a fab night, XXXX, with Noah Flynn." The picture had 62 likes. He had 17 comments. 18 someone else commented while I was looking. The phone showed Noah wearing a white shirt lined with blue under the collar and with blue thread. I remembered him buying it just before he left for college. There was an extra button undone. There was a huge grin on his face, and he looked like he was laughing at something. He had his arm around a girl, holding her in close. The girl was blonde and beautiful, and her dress, at least I guessed it was a dress, was strapless and very low cut to accentuate what little curves she had. And what little curves she had were pressed up against my boyfriend, and she looked like she was giggling, her eyes half closed and crinkled around the edges. And she was kissing his cheek, and he was grinning. I felt sick. Lee took Rachel's phone out of my hands, which was lucky because I probably would have dropped it a second or two later. My shoulders slumped before it hit me. I tensed up completely, even my toes curling in anger. This is some kind of sick joke, right? Rachel leaned away from me slightly and slowly took her cell back from Lee, dropping it into her cartoonist purse. Oh my God. I ran my hands hard over my face and up into my hair, shaking it out just for something to occupy their agitation. Was this why he'd been weird when we talked yesterday? Not because of our conversation on Saturday, but because something had happened with this girl? Tell me this is some kind of joke. Shelley, please. My voice broke on the word, but somehow, miraculously, I managed not to start crying. Rachel and Lisa looked at each other yet again, and something in me snapped. I shot out of my chair, almost knocking it over, and stormed out, ignoring Mr. Shane calling for me to sit back down, and I heard Lee chasing after me. I stormed down the hallway, taking a few turns until I was in the staircase, where it was silent, and Lee grabbed my hand from behind, stopping me from running away any further. He jerked my arm, tugging me round, and I let him wrap his arms around me. I took a few shaky breaths, more angry than upset. No, I wasn't angry. I was furious, livid, in a rage. And even more than that, I was confused. How could Noah do this to me? There had to be some kind of explanation for that photo, but even if it was totally innocent, why was some random girl kissing his cheek? Wouldn't he have told me about it if it was no big deal? And why did he look so damn happy about it? Things between us had felt so distant lately. What if... I drew in another ragged breath and then stepped back from Lee, and he let me. I blinked the tears out of my eyes to see Lee smiling sadly. I'm sure it doesn't mean anything, Al. Noah loves you. You know that. I know that. Everyone knows that. After he went all out at the summer dance to win you back, he was probably drunk, and even if some girl kissed him on the cheek, it's not like it was a proper kiss. You know. It doesn't mean anything. Cam kissed you on the cheek at John's party, and Lisa didn't go crazy. Everyone's looking at me like it does mean something, though. And what if it does? What if they are right, Lee? Without meaning to, I'd raise my voice so that it echoed throughout the staircase. My chest heaved with shallow breaths. What if it does mean something? I haven't seen him for weeks. And what if he's forgotten all about me and met other girls, better, smarter, prettier, funnier girls, who are there with him and not on the other side of the country, and in a totally different time zone, too? Things were so weird between us when we spoke this weekend. What if he's met someone and he's just waiting until Thanksgiving when he sees me in person to break up with me? Because he's trying to be nice? Lee shook his head, but the way he bit his lip made me wonder if I was right. Has he said something to you? I asked, my voice a hesitant murmur, and totally pathetic. Lee? Please tell me. He just said that he's finding it hard to be away from you, Lee sighed, looking me in the eye from under his thick eyelashes. But I didn't think he meant that he'd met someone else, and that he didn't want to be with you. And what if he did? Then I guess I'll have to call him later and talk about it and find out. But, Shelley, listen. Noah can be kind of a butthead sometimes, but he wouldn't cheat. That's not him. I knew he was right, but it made me feel nauseous all over again just to think about making that phone call. And if I was wrong, how much worse I'd make things by accusing him of something like that. Sure, maybe it was totally innocent and everything would be fine, but this was the same guy who couldn't tell me something as simple as the fact that he was finding college hard. So what if it wasn't fine? For the rest of the day, I'd listen to people gossip about me. The general idea everyone had decided to go with was that Noah and I had broken up, and I'd hooked up with Levi at the party. I heard the terms revenge sex and rebound getting thrown around a lot. And Noah had, in turn, hooked up with this preppy girl, Amanda, from college. The so-called evidence now all over Facebook. Levi had shown up to school late. He'd had a doctor's appointment first thing, and we'd told him about the rumors over lunch. He just laughed. People should mind their own goddamn business, Rachel had muttered, taking an angry bite out of her apple. I didn't think I'd ever heard her so irritated. It's high school, Dixon responded, deadpan. What else do you expect? When I finally did get home, I barged up to my room, slamming the door so my dad and brother got the message not to talk and trying to talk to me, and I called my boyfriend, if I could call him that anymore. My hands were trembling so hard that I could feel my cell phone shaking against my face. I stopped pacing and sat down on the floor, my back against my bed, and I brought my knees up to my chest, wrapping my free arm around them. I crossed my fingers that he wouldn't pick up, and closed my eyes and wished he would. Any second now it would go to voicemail. Pick up, don't. Pick up, don't. Pick. It went to voicemail. I hung up. And before I could decide whether to just toss my cell onto my bed out of the way or whether I should try calling again, he was calling back. I jumped when my phone started buzzing in my hands and fumbled to answer it. I croaked, my voice sounding weirdly raw. I coughed to clear my throat, but it didn't do anything to clear my head and order my mess of thoughts. You rang? Yeah. There was a pause. Was there anything in particular you wanted to talk about, Shelley? Or are you just calling because you miss my tones? I wanted to laugh. I couldn't manage to smile. Elle, what's up? Is everything okay? I saw it. What? I saw the photo. Another pause. I'm not really following. What are you talking about? The photo on Facebook! I yelled, my frustration bursting out of me. The photo of you and that girl. I spat the word like it was some kind of insult. At the party you went to on Saturday night, with your arms around each other and her kissing your cheek and... Oh, that. I bristled. How dare he sound so flippant? Do you think I wouldn't see it? That I wouldn't find out? I heard him wince. Maybe I was a little shrill, but I couldn't help it. Elle, please, stop freaking out on me. Take a deep breath. Let's talk. Talk? You want to talk? You had all of yesterday to talk to me about this, but you didn't. Do you have any idea how humiliated I was when I went to school today and everybody else had seen that photo and everybody else knew and gossiped about it behind my back? Do you have any idea what that felt like? Elle, I'm sorry. I didn't think it was a big deal. It's just a photo from a party. Oh, so if I go on your Facebook profile, I'll find a whole album of you cuddling random girls at parties with them, kissing you? It sounded crazy and irrational, even as I said it, but I couldn't stop myself. I was spiraling. I just kept thinking, how if he couldn't talk to me about something as normal as how he was actually doing in college, then what else couldn't he talk to me about? Was he finding our relationship hard too? Was the distance too much? Was that why he'd suggested I apply for colleges in Boston? Did he regret trying long distance and was just waiting for the right time to tell me? Definitely irrational and crazy, but I was so scared of losing him. Amanda's not some random girl. There were the last words. Those were the last words I wanted to hear from him, and I sucked in a sharp breath from my nose and clenched my jaw. What are you trying to say? She means something to you? Are you trying to tell me something? That's not what I meant, and you know it. I meant, she's a friend. She's my lab partner. We hang out. We study together. That's all I meant by it. Seriously, Elle, just calm down. If she's such a good friend, why is this the first time I'm hearing about her? Noah sighed, agitated. Okay, so Elle, there's a girl I've been hanging out with a lot. We have classes together, and she's my lab partner, and we study together a lot. We have mutual friends, and hang out and go to parties together. You think I don't know how that sounds? I bit my tongue hard before snapping back. Is that your way of telling me you think I'm some psycho, jealous person who won't let you hang out with other girls? He was quiet for a moment. His voice came out cold and steady. You just called me to tell me, to yell at me about a photo, Elle? I was so ready to snap him again, but caught myself sipping quietly instead. There was a bitter tang in my mouth, and I was flushed, heart hammering. I'd broken out in a cold sweat. So he was right. But it felt like he'd been lying to me. I started to understand, for a moment, just how shitty. Shelley? Noah's voice was startlingly soft and quiet, not irritable and full of jealousy like I'd expected. We are good, right? Of course we are, I said, though, if I was being honest with myself, I really didn't know anymore. I wanted us to be good. I wanted everything to go back normal. I didn't want to fight or be petty. I took a deep breath. I'm sorry I got so angry. That's okay. You have every right to be. Part of me wondered where this calm, cool, collected Noah had suddenly come from. He would usually yell just as much as I would. We could both get fired up when we argued, but he was rarely ever the voice of reason like this. Had college really changed him so much? I have to go, he said, sighing. I'm sorry. I really am, but I promised some of the football guys I'd meet them for dinner to hang out. But I'll try to call you later. We both hesitated, listening to each other's breathing, and then I pulled the phone away from my ear and hung up. My eyes slid shut, and I tilted my head back against my bed, taking a deep breath. If things were supposed to be so great with me and Noah, why did I feel like my heart was breaking?